said, "You shall love your neighbor and hate your enemy." But I say to you, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you, that you may be children of your heavenly Father. For he makes his sun shine on the bad and the good, and causes rain to fall on the just and the unjust. For if you love those who love you, what recompense will you have? Do not the tax collectors do the same? And if you greet your brothers only, what is unusual about that? Do not the pagans do the same? So be perfect, just as your heavenly Father is perfect. The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ.
Opening prayer. Good Father, I know you love me. I desire to love you, and through you, love others, both my neighbors and my enemies. Please help me.
To love your enemies seems impossible, since at times it is difficult enough to love our neighbors as God commands us to do. Consider how Adam blamed his wife Eve, the woman who you put here with me. She gave me the fruit from the tree, so I ate it. Genesis 3. In turn, Eve blamed the devil. The snake tricked me, so I ate it. Since the beginning, it has become part of human nature to blame, to assign responsibility for a fault or wrong. How can we be expected to love our enemies? Jesus answered this question. For human beings, this is impossible, but for God, all things are possible. Matthew 19:26. To be obedient to God in this teaching of Jesus requires of us what we cannot produce ourselves: grace. Grace is first and foremost a gift of the Holy Spirit, who justifies and sanctifies us.
Children of the Heavenly Father, forgiveness of those who persecute us is a prerequisite to loving our persecutors. Jesus explains through prayer, he taught us that to be a child of God who is loved means we are merciful to others as we receive the mercy from our Heavenly Father. Forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. If we forgive our enemies, we are children of the Heavenly Father. If we refuse to forgive, we choose to act as children of the father of the world, who is the devil. Beware. Jesus condemned the unbelieving Pharisees. You belong to your father, the devil, and you willingly carry out your father's desires.
So be perfect, just as your heavenly Father is perfect. These words can discourage us because we think it is impossible. We often fall. Proverbs 24:16 tells us, though the just fall 7 times, they rise again, but the wicked stumble from only one mishap. Our falling is a given. It is the rising again that makes one just. Our ideal is Jesus, who fell 3 times and who rose 3 times carrying his cross. Our ideal is Jesus, who said, as he hung on the cross, forgive them, Father, for they know not what they do. Luke 23:34. How can we be perfect? We follow Jesus and do what he does.
Conversing with Christ. Lord Jesus, we have fallen so many times. We hurt from all the wounds we have caused through our refusal to forgive our enemies. We are sorry. Please help us to see our enemies as you see them. Help us to be merciful as you are merciful. Jesus, we trust in you.
My adorable
Lord
Jesus,
Jesus,
May our feet journey together. May our hands gather in unity. May our hearts beat in unison. May our souls be in harmony. May our thoughts be as one. May our ears listen to the sounds together. May our glances profoundly penetrate each other. May our lips pray together to gain mercy from the eternal Father. Amen. Very nice. Okay, number 3, land acknowledgement. Dwayne?
Before we begin, the Medicine Hat Catholic Board of Education would like to acknowledge that we are gathering on the traditional land of the Blackfoot people, who have welcomed here for centuries the Cree, the Métis, other First Nations, and non-Indigenous people. The land is now recognized as the traditional territory of Treaty 7 to the north, west, and south, and Treaty 4 to the east. Medicine Hat Catholic Board of Education also wishes to thank the First Nations people, past and present, for welcoming us here.
Thank you. Presentations, we don't have any. Approval of the minutes. 5.1, the public board meeting on May the 10th. I have somebody. Bernie? And do we second that? All in favor? Sorry, I never remember that one. Okay, and 5.2, the public board meeting from May 30th. I have somebody move that. Robert? And all in favor? Okay, thinking on to the next page here. Okay, and approval of the agenda. Approval of the agenda. Is there any additions or Mr. Mestel?
I'll move to approve the adoption of the agenda.
Okay. All in favor? Okay. Board communications. See nothing there. Let's go to Catholic education. School Parish Relations Committee. Robert?
We have a meeting with the local clergy on June 29th.
Okay. 8.2, collection of faith-related data from students. Mrs. Urban?
The report is attached. I'm happy to answer any questions.
That was for the synod, right?
That's right.
I looked at this, but right. I think we should be very proud of this. We had, I guess that's in the next point, collaboration with Bishop McGrattan. But we had, what was it? There was 500 kids all together in the diocese,
That's right.
and there was 300 from Medicine Hat Catholic that participated in the synod. Yeah. So that's very good numbers for us. We should be proud of that. When I read through it, that's all I really paid attention to. Anybody else?
You're doing a great job.
Well, and I said the bishop was very pleased and actually made a point of thanking me. And I said I just asked the question, so it's a kudos to our administrators and our teachers and our students for answering that call to be part of it. So. Yeah.
So now where does that go?
Well, that's
Where is it
kind of
at?
the next
I guess where is it
step.
at?
So now it goes to the diocese and then it goes like to the Western Catholic Bishop and it goes and it goes and goes, but we have that data we don't need to wait for it to come back to us.
Okay.
So that's the next step. I need to figure out the best way to get that to the principals. And might come in as we're looking at a big pastoral plan for next year to drive some of the decisions we make.
Yeah. Good. Anybody else? Any questions or comments on that? Okay. So that kind of covers 8.2 and 8.3, right? Or is there
Point
anything else you would
three,
like to say?
We just are interested in inviting the bishop to
Oh,
our
right.
religious ed committee meetings with our faith leaders and our student faith leaders. So once we have those dates set, we will invite the bishop to join us in as many as he wants to. And we'll try to collaborate a trustee meeting while he's here as well.
Okay, yeah, because is this the one where there was the concern from, yeah, that we're not inviting the bishop enough and we're not inviting the priests enough to sort of interact with us. And so we need to have that in our pastoral plan or our work plan or somewhere we need to have that incorporated into that. Somebody had suggested maybe around the time of confirmation, or when's the other time that he's here? He's here twice.
Beginning of the year.
Beginning of the year and confirmation, that maybe we could set a time that the board actually meets. Go ahead.
One of the ideas as well, Chair, that we thought about is that we do have our student faith, I don't want to call it committees, I don't think that's the right term
Right.
for it, but the group that's going to be working together. And so we thought it might be that one of their events, or whatever the case we want to call it, to actually invite the bishop to spend an hour or two with them in terms of that event, and then have them subsequently meet with the board after, so that it's not tied to some other event where he has to rush away, that he's spending the day in our jurisdiction.
I really like the plan. Like in the past, we've had meetings with the bishop as a board, but outside of his pastoral visits to both parishes in the past, the bishops haven't really been invited into our schools, as far as to my knowledge anyway. So I think this is really excellent. I really like it. I think he'll appreciate it. I mean, some years he may not be able to attend, but others, hopefully he will.
And two, with the priests too, to invite them into some particular thing or sort of schedule it into the year so that it's there. Go ahead.
I think just another note on that is I think we have to do a better job as a jurisdiction to make sure that when we're inviting the priests, we're initially anyways inviting them with a purpose,
Yes,
so that
absolutely.
they have a chance to build relationships within the school, so that later on when they walk into the school, they're not feeling uncomfortable, or they know sort of what to do, if that makes sense, because it can be very daunting to someone just walking into a school. What do you do? So initially, if there's a few things or activities that they can participate in, and then once that relationship is developed, or at least they feel a bit more comfortable, then they'll be able to pop into buildings on their own and not always need to be invited as well, because that's where we hope that our relationship goes, is that they're just in and out of our buildings.
But if we can schedule something in to our school year, that's a good thing too. Yeah. And then build that. Mr. Mesto?
Well, I was just going to say what Dwayne just said, is that we want to get to the place where the priest can just come to the school unannounced and drop in. And that's not going to happen at the start.
No. So that's why we need to schedule something.
That's right. I was going to make that exact same point, and I think it's an excellent point. I would like to get to the place where they can just come and drop in.
And they would too. Yeah. Okay, good. I think that's everything on that, right, Heather? Okay, board work plan. Staffing update, Mr. Hellman?
So we've offered 2 new positions, as you can see on the report there. We had one staff member resign just recently. We had one staff member requested leave of absence, so we're filling the positions as we speak, so we're that close to being finished with our staff. I believe I have one at McCoy yet, and still one at Notre Dame.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Earlier in the spring, Mr. Hellman, you mentioned an attempt to get somebody to teach at McCoy and also coach football. Where are we on that?
we have Joel Krasman. He's taught with us on a temporary contract at Notre Dame last year. Joel's background is he played football for a U.S. team. He played, forget the team, do you remember what the team was?
Dickinson State,
Right, thank you.
which is
And-
a Catholic school.
Yeah, and so he's expressed interest in coaching football. That he had he was wondering. We told him what we wanted him to be up to McCoy, and it took a little convincing that we transferred him to McCoy, and we have him actually working with the football team as we speak. He's there 3 times a week, working in the gym, doing footwork drills with them. He's happy. He's got a real core of players that he's excited to work with. I've actually, both Dwayne and I have been in and we watched him work with some kids, and I've been very impressed with his positive attitude. He's kind of coaching all the time, right? He's very positive. He works those kids very well. And I think I was very impressed with him was with his team. You could tell that there was a sense of I don't know how to put it, but they were all together and they were high-fiving each other after every drill. There was a sense of excitement. And he's mentioned that to us also, how he sees there's a sense of excitement there. He's happy with his core group of players. He, like every football coach in the world, would like a bit more size. But he's very happy. And another good thing about Joel is he's got a good sense of who's out there in the football world. And he is definitely beating down the bushes and looking for folks that will, help him coach up at McCoy. So, long story short, Joel Krasman has been transferred to McCoy, and he is going to be looking after our football program.
Is he a Krasman from Medicine Hat?
Pardon me?
Is he from Medicine Hat?
Yes.
Dickinson State, that's where Dr. Galoshin was an education professor for a number of years. So it's a good Catholic school. The new position at McCoy, what's involved there teaching wise?
He's hiring for his international piece. So there's part of 2 positions, small parts. So there'll be some English language arts, some English second language pieces, and then he's got some other pieces that he's going to fill. And then he'll have other teachers, like in his English department, work with the kids that are outside of international kids.
But is that what, were you just describing Joel's job?
Nope, Joel's,
So this is the position that was created when somebody resigned.
yes, Joel's position you're talking about. Sorry,
Someone recently resigned?
no, that's from a different school.
What different school? I thought you said somebody from McCoy
No,
recently.
sorry, we're looking to hire 1 more position.
Okay, thank you very much.
Any other questions?
Sorry,
Go ahead.
this has no implications on the budget. These were already in the budget. Thank you.
Okay, we'll on to 9.2. Board discussion meetings for 22-23. We would kind of like, or I would kind of like this to be not every month. That's too much. If we could do 3 or 4 or 5, probably 4 a year, I think that's lots. What do you guys think? Okay, I'm gonna pick on you, Mr. Mestel.
I don't like being picked on.
Get over it.
I think you're probably right. If we're having these meetings just to have a meeting, I agree. I think the chair I know the chair has the right to call special meetings or discussion meetings when an issue arises that the chair feels the district would benefit by having a meeting. I think we could leave it at that. My fear is that if we schedule a meeting every month, that we're going to come up with the topic, which may or may not really be an issue. And we start coming up with topics to fill a meeting rather than have a concern and have a meeting for it.
Well, I see a real need for them, for us to have discussions outside of a board meeting where you're really restricted, and this chapter 8 in here talks a lot about that. But to have one every month, I just thought was too many. Mr. Leahy.
I was going to bring up chapter 8 as well, about how important board discussions are. Frankly, I don't think it would take too much effort to come up with 10 worthy topics for us to discuss during the year. However, so to answer your question, I would like to see more than 4 or 5. Does it have to be 10? No. But I think there are 2, and in my 5 years experience, have I heard consistently from trustees on a fairly consistent basis, the need to have, what was the term? Thank you very much, Trustee Musto. To have these discussions. I was challenged and intrigued by the comment in here that these discussions should be out in the open and be scheduled and open to the public. That challenged me too. So it's that's given me some thought. So to summarize, I'd like to see more than 4 or 5, and perhaps 10 is too many, but I would like more than 4 or 5.
Mr. Mastel?
Yeah, I share your concerns. To have those generative meetings out in the open, I think would probably limit the kinds of discussions that we would be having. You can't talk about what may be an idea, particularly if the idea is controversial, and we're just talking about it, not saying that we're going to do it. And the press is there, and they're saying, and you're hearing, we're going to close McCoy, we're going to homeschool all these kids.
That's an example.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, that's only an example.
You can't be discussing those ideas that are a little off the wall. I mentioned to you at an earlier meeting a book that I had called The Whack on the Side of the Head, which was a book about creative thinking. And it's the kind of thinking that is probably better shared at a closed meeting, because a ridiculous idea like closing McCoy might have a germ of truth to it that happens that we do something altogether different, but that discussion leads to something altogether different. And I think if the generative meetings are open to all, it would limit that discussion, and I think the district would be at a disadvantage for that.
Deacon Robert?
How do I say this?
Just say it.
Oh, I will. I like the board discussion meetings. I think it's important that we have them. I don't think we need to have one every month. We do need to think about a retreat as well in our board plan. As a deacon in the diocese, one of my roles is to model service. And one thing I've noticed, I'm celebrating 20 years this month of ordained ministry, and one thing I've noticed working with different groups of people is that not everyone is as generous with their time as I would be, right? And that's because I've been given a charisma of generosity. And I think, and my challenge would be not just to this group, but to any other groups that are listening, that, well, first of all, that we don't make a decision today, but that we consider that our service to the community, like at times it means that we have to sacrifice and we need to be generous. And the work that we do as a board is very important because we're impacting lives, and not just the lives of these children, but for generations. And so the decisions that we make around this table are very important. And it's much bigger than us. And I would just like to challenge us. I think 10 is too many, realistically. But I think if the discussion items that we have at the meetings, that they're well thought out, that I think it's a worthwhile endeavor. And it, like, our meetings have only been a couple hours anyway. And I don't think it's erroneous, that's the right term, to ask of that of each other. So those are my thoughts.
Mr. Kinch?
Chair, my first thought on that was something I thought of previously, and that was moving the committee of the whole to a different day, which would allow for more time. But that also, while would remove the discussion meetings that we presently had, would probably add to the number combined. Also, if we were to have in our discussion meetings a limit to things that are perhaps extraneous to the work of our trustees, and just focus on issues within the district, that might allow more time for the meeting itself. I'm more of the mind that if the committee of the whole doesn't move, that we would limit the number, and perhaps 5 would be the max, 1 every 2 months. That's kind of where I'm.
Well, I guess where this came up for me was some of those meetings went quite long. It wasn't just the 2 hours. And we're having people at the end of their day that probably for myself isn't as productive as at the beginning of my day. Brain wise, I don't know how else to say that. And I know, Robert, you have an issue with days, right?
Yeah, I'm not retired like the rest of you guys.
But if we schedule them,
Oh, there is.
yeah. Well, don't retire. Somebody will find you way more stuff to do.
Yeah.
If we scheduled them for the day, could you do that? Rather than schedule a whole bunch late in the day, just schedule
Well, I
few
guess,
in the day, like as part of our work plan.
I guess we could have that discussion if you wanted to do. I mean, it just means taking time off of work, right? Getting days out, which is not easy.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's not undoable, right? If I do it. Anything that's a priority, I do it. I give a lot of time on.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
I wasn't part of the agenda setting meeting for this agenda, so I wasn't here for the discussion on the dates, but I think for sure there may be 1 or 2 meetings that we'd like to schedule, maybe for an afternoon. I think one, we have a much better idea going through the process this year with budget in terms of the discussion that the board wants to have and the documentation that's required. And because the purpose of these meetings really are to inform and educate. And then that gives you as a trustee, the tools that you need at the board meeting when you're deliberating to make a decision. If we're having meetings to make a decision, then that's a committee of the whole meeting, and so then we have to go through the process. So that's a public meeting. And so I think there might be at least 1 or 2. Budget is one, where you may not want to have that discussion at the end of the day when people are tired, and you want to have a bit of time so that if it goes 2 or 3 hours, no one's,
And that was a long one. That was the long one.
Yeah, because something like that, you want to have the energy to engage in it. Other ones probably aren't as critical to necessarily do, an all-day presentation on or discussion, but there might be at least 1 or 2 there.
David, did you have your hand up? Oh, okay, go ahead.
like budget. So if I could, Madam Chair, just put forward ideas,
Okay, go ahead.
budget, religious education. Later this evening, we're going to hear about a report, and I think it would be important for the board to get together in a generative environment to talk about that report and to hear from administration what their plans are to implement the recommendations. I also wonder, and I don't need the answer now, if there are any kind of evaluations that are coming up that we need to be part of. And that could be also scheduled in one of these things where, however we do it, it's an opportunity to look at the data and so on.
Well, I guess what I was looking for here is just what you think of the numbers, how many we should have, and sort of the length.
Well, Madam Chair, I think we could probably debate this for a long time.
Yeah.
I would like to see this left in the hands of the chair. Trustees, if you have an issue that you would like to have discussed by a special meeting, please ask there's a way of doing that. You can consult with the chair and have that meeting happen. I don't know that we have to make a decision about that today.
No, we don't.
We're leaving that in the hands of the chair and dealing with it in that way.
Okay. Yeah, and that's good with me too. I just wanted to bring this up, just because I felt some of them ran really long, and do we need it every month? And yeah,
Well, the one that ran long was the budget.
the budget was really
And,
long. Yeah.
I would like to see that we have that kind of meeting every year, and it may run overtime
Yeah.
every year. I think
Yeah.
that's
Or have a whole afternoon instead of just the 2 hours. Yeah. Okay, we'll work on that. All right, information items. Dwayne, strategic priorities update.
So the update is attached, and this will be the last report in this nature, largely because now that we've identified our outcomes, in the fall, we'll be reporting specifically on achievement of the outcomes that were identified in our 4-year plan. And additionally, over the course of the summer and going into the fall, we will also be creating a dashboard. And the intent there is eventually, hopefully within a year, Alberta Education has expressed interest in our jurisdiction developing, I guess, a digital version of the 4-year plan and sort of putting all the elements together. So with the intent that we would move away from the printed copy. But we don't have permission from Alberta Education to do that as a formal thing, but it's a request to put that idea together and have them have a look at it to see if that's something that the department would approve, and then 2 would be something then that would be replicated in the province, province-wide. So, but in any event, for our jurisdiction, moving forward, all of the reports will be on specific outcomes and providing an update where we are with respect to achieving those outcomes. And as well, we'll have a component on our website that will be a bit more graphic. And so it could be either like a speedometer or something like gauge that shows you how much we've completed, so that if you, even before a board meeting, if you wanted to have just a quick snapshot of where we are with respect to our 4-year plan, you could look at it, and then that would help potentially generate some questions.
Okay. Any questions there? Or comments? All right, let's move on to St. Louis Roof. Mr. McPherson.
Thanks. This is a follow-up information item from the last board meeting. Francis has provided some additional information around shingles for Cedar, and that information was included within the report. Francis continues to recommend that we use the high-quality asphalt shingles for St. Louis. He feels that's the best solution for what we're trying to achieve. When we've costed out what the costs are, and that's identified within my report, the cedar shingles, based on what information that we have, would cost about $7,900 per year. Asphalt would be $1,733, and metal at just over $2,000. So even from a cost benefit point of view, going with the asphalt shingles with an appropriate color to the roof would be the preferable solution. As a reminder, this has already been budgeted for within the IMR plan. The only reason why this actually has come to the board was just when there was the risk of the historical designation at St. Louis being the cedar shingles, we thought we would have to go in that direction. There is no historical designation on that school, so we can go with the asphalt and the least cost method. So unless if there's any further objection, we'll be proceeding with the asphalt shingles at St. Louis School.
Does anybody have anything with that? Like I'm good with it. It looks like everybody is. All right, let's move on then. 10.3.
Thank you. This is a follow-up from Board Motion 3861, which is to have the AP or an AP developed. We've opted to expand on AP 110, which is the school-based decision making, and that now includes the effects of that board motion. Very specifically, what it's requiring is that the principals will do presentations to staff and school council on the current year school budget, as well as the school generated fund balances and plans, as well as doing a presentation of the audit of the school budget and SGF. And that would be completed by January of the subsequent year. All reports that are used for the presentations are to be submitted to the division office, and we will compile them to ensure that that's been completed. So the AP is updated and it identifies the modernized changes there. So if there's any questions, I can take those now.
Oh, this is good for me.
Thank you.
Nope, that's good. Everybody good? All right, plant operations and maintenance grant.
So this is a follow-up to a question that we received. The POM funding comes from two components. One is the student allocation, and the second is the school space allocation. For the student allocation, we receive, at least for the budget for the upcoming year, $534,000. The school space allocation is $2,016,000, which gives us a combined grant of $2.5 million. So very specifically within the school space allocation, which is what the question was about, that grant looks at two components: the utilized space within the school, as well as the underutilized space within the school. So what the government does is they take the area capacity utilization for each school. So that takes essentially the instructional floor space, and then applies the number of students in the school, and it comes up with a percentage. Based on that, the utilized space is funded at $62.62 per square meter, and the underutilized space is funded at $42 per square meter. So if to see it, the real life example, if we go to page 3 of that report, I've presented a spreadsheet that shows the ACU impact of the funding. And the very first school there is St. John Paul II School. It has a instructional space area of 2,969 square meters. It currently has a utilization of 82%. So on that basis, a fully utilized school would be at 85%, and an underutilized school would be below 85%. So what the government does is applies the 82% to the area. So the utilized area is 2,435. And then the underutilized area would be 534. So applying that 6262 to the utilized area, we get utilized area funding of $152,000. And then the underutilized area is $22,000, which gives us a total funding for that school of $175,000. In the very last column, what I've tried to do was identify what the loss that we're incurring from the underutilized area. So what we can do is take the difference between the 6262, which is the fully utilized grant, and the 4242, which is the underutilized grant, and we get a difference of $20.20 per square meter. If you apply that to the underutilized area, the amount that we're losing is, at least for that school, is just under $11,000. So you could follow that through for each school. As soon as that school hits 85%, it's considered fully utilized. So then that school gets the maximum grant. And a place like what we can see with Notre Dame Academy with a utilization of 88% gets all the square meter for that school fully utilized. So the secret, I think, here is trying to balance between schools and where possible get those schools up to 85%, if that's possible.
I was surprised at St. Louis is 108%.
That's a very good observation. The reason why that number is high is and it's inflated to some degree, is all our external preschool students their files are housed out of that school, so it drives the utilization up, even though there are no bodies from that cohort within the school.
David?
So thank you, thank you, Mr. McPherson. When did this come into being?
This was part of the move to the weighted moving average. So we're in our third year up of it, so 3 years ago.
So just an observation. To me, this seems to be another indication that the government is pushing schools towards if they don't see enrollment rising quickly in a particular school, this is an indication that the government would like districts to consider consolidation as an option.
And it's a valid point. And when I looked at some further analysis, it would drive that, but the behavior may not necessarily follow that. And what do I mean by that? If you look at St. Francis and St. Michael's School, St. Michael's School could house all the students at St. Francis. So if we were to move those students and close the school, the amount of funding that we would lose on POM is $87,000. But the amount that we're losing at the St. Michael's School is $24,000. So we would actually be in a worse off position just looking at the grant if we were to do that. But there are other factors, lower custodial costs, lower utility costs, lower insurance costs. So those would be things that I think we would have to look at in the totality if we were to go down.
That's an interesting observation, which I really appreciate. And it reminds me of the situation we had when it was proposed by yours truly to close St. Michael's School in Bow Island. And the thought was that we would save money. And your analysis showed us that, as a matter of fact, we wouldn't. And that when they eventually did move to another district, we ended up transferring X number of dollars to that new district. So that's interesting.
Any other comments? I found this interesting.
Good, thank you.
Okay. Communications report. This is Alex.
My report is attached and, I'll see you next month. If you guys have any questions, just let me know. This is my last board meeting for a while.
Oh, yeah. That's okay. You'll be busy.
I think I
Another great job. We're in the news lots.
We were in the news lots.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, and we will be getting a new education reporter. Kendall's been promoted to another stream of the news, so
Oh,
I think for the new school year, we'll be seeing a new face and so yeah, hopefully we're still in there. She's done a great job for us this year.
yeah, she has.
So good luck, Derek.
Well, thank you.
Do we know anything about your replacement?
We had hired a young lady to replace. We had booked her 4 days.
Yeah.
4 days to work with Darian, before Darian leaves. Then her official start date will be August 15th.
When is your last day?
June 30th.
Oh, June, you're at the end of the year.
Yeah, I'm staying for the full school year and then we'll have a bit of a break in July. And then, yeah, in August, when things get rolling.
Yeah, literally.
Quite literally.
Somebody told me that Boo Boo is on here, Boo Boo Benjamin. He's been averaging 5 points a game and has been just a star on that Canadian team.
Very exciting.
Playing outstanding defense.
Unbelievable guy.
It's funny that he's the small, like,
Yeah.
he's kind of like small. I was like, that's why he's not small.
He's he's listed as a small forward and he's 6'7".
That's why a small forward.
Wonder what the big guys look like.
Yeah.
It's interesting to watch those games because it's the Spanish announcers.
Oh,
And
yeah.
if you know anything about their culture and like how they announce soccer games and stuff, it's real. You think Bob Ridley gets pumped?
It would be cool to watch live. And then, yeah, I did highlight the Walk for Wishes too. John Paul II raised over $9,000 this year. It's, I think, the most in the city for a school. It's like, I don't remember any school raising that amount of money for any walk in the past. So I thought that was really
It's just nice to see it, to see, see our district in the news because we are newsworthy.
I think everyone's really excited to be doing things. Like there's been so many field trips and so many trips to Camp McCoy and walks for wishes and fundraisers and outdoor events that people can participate in. I think that everyone's just in such a good mood.
Yeah.
Everyone's just active and out there. It's really nice to see. Instead of COVID announcements all the time.
Okay, well, thank you, Darian, and we will see you when you get back. All right, action and discussion items, 11.1, religious education review. Wait,
So Dr. Semeki did present the findings of the religious education review to the board during the committee of the whole. And so I put this item on, I guess, twofold. One is to talk about some of the preliminary plans that have been done in response to the review. And then two, to have trustees have an opportunity to make comment on the findings. But initially, I found the results of the religious education review overall to be very positive and encouraging for jurisdictions. Dr. Seneki did mention myself and to our other senior administrators how pleased he was with the jurisdiction and was very impressed with Medicine Hat Catholic overall. However, there were a number of recommendations that he made, and these were in alignment with the jurisdiction with respect to just improving on the things that we are already doing. One of them was a call that I think he heard from all of our staff with respect to faith formation. And so we did share some of the preliminary results with our religious education committee and had a robust discussion at our last meeting. And so some of the ideas that they are working on would be to implement, and I'm not sure if the term would be correct, but like a mini RCIA program, where once a month, folks who do that work in the church would come and make that available to our staff as well. We have funds that have been set aside in the international education budget with respect to religious education that we can utilize to cover the sub-costs, so that this wouldn't be a cost to the teachers or staff members who wanted to attend those sessions. But those types of sessions are very relevant and they're exceptionally informative. And if we put it in bite-sized pieces and just make the invitation as Dr. Sarnecki recommended, then the committee felt that that would be a great start to begin that journey of faith formation. We also have our student faith leadership group, and we talked a little bit as an example about having our Bishop McGrattan spend some time with him as well. And then another item that we need to do some work on is our parish and school relations, and specifically finding ways to engage with our priests and having them become more involved in our schools. And so our parish and school relations committee will be having that as a topic of on our agenda with our parish priests to sort of kickstart that and to find out, from their perspective, what are ways that schools could, or what are things that schools could do to encourage them and make it easier for them to be in our schools. One of the suggestions, or one of the questions I think that came up was with respect to the Red Deer Conference in the fall, and it happens biannually and it's put on by the Catholic Superintendents Association. And so all of our school administrators, with the exception of one vice principal, will be attending this fall. Right here. And so with that, and finally, because this was this review involved not only staff and students, but parents and community members and so on, we will be generating a response to share the results with our community as well, because they were very gracious with their time to engage with us during the process, and so we want to share back what we heard, and then also what some of our plans would be moving forward once we have those established. I don't know, Heather, did you have anything to add to that prior to me opening it up?
I think that we have a few ideas, but I also want to ask the teachers, the staff, the support staff, what they would like. I went to Spice this year, and David Wells was a speaker, and he talked about accompaniment or accompanying people. And it's easy for us around the table to think we know what people want for faith formation, but I think it's really important to ask people what they want. So we're kind of looking at a way to get some of that information. I'm running out of time for this year, but I think that's important.
How are you going to share it with the people who helped? You said you were going to share this information.
Sure. So, my first blush was to generate a report. However, this may be something that we could also be a bit more creative with in terms of a video or something like that folks could just watch and listen to. So one way or the other, that it could be probably in either a more traditional manner where there's a report shared. However, I think, as we're moving even with our 4-year plan to look at that being more of a digital thing that people can access, then we would build something that folks could just click on. We would email the link for the video out to them and they could watch it, but also have it on our website as well, so that because part of the results or part of the results of the religious education review will also be part of our 4-year plan.
Right.
Those will be identified in there. So there'll be a natural connection as well with that, but we did want to capture what was the overall results of the review, what we heard and what we learned, and how we're moving forward.
Anybody else? Jessica?
Dr. Zurinsky, just one question regarding the first point you made up in terms of faith formation and possibly having RCIA will present. Were you thinking that would be a district-wide presentation, or would it be by invitation?
I hopefully we have to move it to the church hall because we have more people that we could fit into this room. But basically what we would do is create a list of topics, one per month, and then just open that up to jurisdictional staff. And they would have the opportunity to indicate, if they want to come or not, they sign up for it, arrange for a sub, and that's how we do it. Would be directed to specific people. All staff would be welcome to come.
David?
I'd like to make a motion, please. Madam Chair. This is at the recommendation of the reviewer, and that is that the Board of Trustees extends thanks and accolades to Dr. Zarichny, Mr. Hellman, Mrs. Urban, Mrs. Lippert, staff and students who participated in this review, and also the parents. And these accolades are being extended because of the excellent impression the district left with Dr. Zarichny. The board would like to extend thanks.
Okay. All in favor? Did you get that, Chelsea?
I think I have this pretty good.
I'm sure you have the spirit of the
I do have the spirit.
Okay, so are you done? Yeah. All right, safe indoor air top up to the Safe Return to Class Fund. That is a big one. Now you tell me what I just said.
So the short of it is, this is the grant that we talked about in the last meeting, where we received $49,785 from the provincial government, which is the last tranche of payments out to school boards from the Safe Return to School grant that the federal government provided. The recommendation that Francis had and still has is that we look at having the furnaces, the ducts, and the HVAC units cleaned based on a prioritized list that he will develop. There were some issues, and they're valid issues around some of the companies that have been doing this, particularly on the residential side, and there have been scams, as W5 has reported. How we're proceeding with this is looking at this from a commercial side. So there is value for this, for ensuring that the air quality remains high within schools. We looked at other neighboring school boards, and both of the ones that we contacted are already doing this. So we're just bringing ourselves up to what other school boards are doing. So we think it's a very effective use of this money that we've just received. Like I said, this will improve the air quality within the schools, and as this is a budget item, there needs to be a motion for it. So the proposed motion that I have for the trustees is, be it resolved that the Board of Trustees for the Medicine Hat Catholic Board of Education, in accordance with Policy 2, Section 1.17, approve the use of the Safe Indoor Air Top-Up to the Safe Return to Class Fund grant of $49,785 to be used to have the furnaces, ducts, and HVAC units cleaned based on a prioritized list to be developed by the Secretary Treasurer.
Okay, would anybody like to make that motion? Oh, sorry, question?
Chair, Mr. McPherson, was that amount already in the budget?
No, this fund just came through in middle of May. I think we received the funds. So we talked to the trustees on the 30th to have that approved, and there were follow-up questions, which I think we've resolved here.
So essentially, it's just an in-out situation?
Yeah.
So it's zero impact on deficit?
That's right. Yeah, it'll be 49,000 in, and we'll be spending 49,000.
Okay, thank you.
Just a point
Go
of
ahead.
order. I think the motion has to be made before the questions. Yes.
Okay, would somebody like to do this? Mr. Mescal?
I will move the recommended motion.
Okay, any discussion? All in favor? Passed.
Thank you.
Okay, 11.3, exit interviews. Mr. Leahy.
Madam Chair, I'd like to move the recommendation that's in the agenda.
Okay, any discussion on exit interviews?
Sure.
Yeah, go ahead.
I have a question on, is this something that's enforceable? What if someone decides not to be compliant with a request for an exit interview?
I don't know the answer to that. Yeah,
We need to make the motion before we do the discussion.
I thought we did. David made the motion.
Oh, sorry,
Yeah.
David.
Yeah.
Sorry. I'm
Okay,
sorry.
go ahead.
It's not stated in there, but my intent that it would be completely voluntary. You would not be required to complete.
I guess 2 jobs I left before I became a teacher. At each of them, I had an exit interview, and both were quite good. And but it was voluntary. I didn't have to do it.
Term voluntary be added to the motion. David, I guess to you.
I'm just trying to see where we'd drop that in. So if I may make, and I'm sorry, a friendly amendment to add voluntary before exit interviews in the second line. So include the, you see where that is?
Yeah, proceed to
The procedure to conduct voluntary exit interviews.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
okay. Is that a friend? Can you make a friendly amendment to your own amendment?
No,
I didn't think so.
just change your motion. It's the simplest way of doing it, I think.
I don't know.
I don't think it's necessary. I think that'd be understood that you can't force someone to.
Yeah.
To be in an interview that they don't want to be in,
Especially if they're leaving us.
especially if they're leaving, yeah.
So
Should we just leave it the way it started, or do you want that word in there?
I think it's fine without it. I think it's understood that that's the case.
Okay,
So, Madam Chair, without getting into a Robert's Rule of Order marathon here, I am willing to change the motion if it's okay with all that it be say voluntary exit interviews. If it's not gonna cause too much of a problem. And I leave at the direction of the Secretary Treasurer.
it's fine.
It's simple.
And I have
Okay.
made a note in here too.
Okay, any more comments? All right, all in favor? Okay, 11.4.
Madam Chair, I'd like to move the recommendations regarding Administrative Procedure 4.3 Paul.
Okay,
And if I may speak to.
yes, certainly.
My objective here is when I looked at this administrative procedure, I thought we could, in order to make this more efficient and to base hiring decisions on more up-to-date data, that we could tighten up the timelines involved in asking people for pastoral references. So that's the reason for some of the changes. And then I also added something to help administration with the issue of whether or not the non-Catholic candidate or employee is a Christian, that they be given a tool to seek input from the division, the diocesan office, so that they can be consulted.
So you're asking for 2 pastoral references here then, right?
No,
One to hire and one when they've been hired.
by April 1st of their probationary year, all Catholic teachers on probationary contracts will provide human resources with an updated pastoral reference from a Catholic priest. So that one refers to Catholic teachers. Number 3 refers to non-Catholic teachers.
Right.
And number 4 refers to an administrative position. So I'm not looking for 2.
Chuck, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, right now, our process, I think that where the question is coming, trustee lady, is that right now the process is that upon application, you submit a pastoral reference. So with your motion, you're saying that they wouldn't have to submit a pastoral reference. They'd provide one by April.
No, I'm not saying that. I don't.
That's what I was asking.
No, I don't make any changes to that they have to provide them before they're hired. I don't address that at all here. What I'm saying is that in those sections, like section 2, the dates for providing those pastoral references are tightened up. So for instance, if I'm on a probationary contract, I need to provide a pastoral reference to the office after January 1st. So it can't be a situation where I hand a pastoral reference to Mr. Hellman during my probationary year, and it's from August 29th of the previous year from my old parish. Now, if this goes through, they'll be required to give Mr. Hellman a pastoral reference from a parish here in Medicine Hat that's dated after January 1st of the current school year. And I make there's no intention stated there that we don't require pastoral references before people are hired. I don't address that at all.
I think though the chair asked, then we'd be asking for 2. That's in fact what we're doing. One at the time of hire and then one after January.
Right. We need to know if in fact, when we ask for a pastoral reference before they get hired, it helps if they're A, Catholic, and B, going to church. That doesn't mean they're disqualified, just we ask for it, okay? These other ones, frankly, are probably more important, that once they're with us, are they going to church and growing their faith? So I don't have any problem that we'd be asking for 2 pastoral. We already are, aren't we? This is before, yeah, I guess I'm not understanding.
I was just clarifying the chair's question. So.
Okay.
Bernie?
Madam
And
Chair,
then Chuck.
so if in the case someone provides a pastoral reference January 1st, and then senior admin decides that they're not going to offer a continuing contract, but say we'd like to keep you on a probationary contract for another year for more evaluation, would that require then the following year another pastoral reference? I think as the wording is now, it would be yes, which I don't necessarily have a problem with, but that would be 3 in the course of a year and a half.
Mr. Leahy?
That's what it reads. So that would be that would be the requirement.
Okay,
Thank you.
Mr.
Just
Conlon?
a point of information, so this, I have no problem with this, just, I don't know if the trustees know or not, but as part of their evaluation, there's a very strong piece in there where they do have to, tell, and the principal looks at it also, but it's a whole document that they have to fill out about, their faith journey, right in that evaluation also. There's another piece there. But there's also a piece that goes into their contract about, pastoral, so this is fun.
So does the priest sign that one you're talking about?
Pastoral references.
Yeah. So the second pastoral, they have two now? Because this would indicate two, right? The one to get hired and the one to get the job, permanent job.
And frankly, I was operating under the assumption that we've been doing this for many, many years, asking for two pastoral references, one to get the job. And because,
One to get hired and one to get a permanent job. That's what you're asking,
Yeah.
right? Okay, that's what I was asking. Is that what you're asking?
Yeah.
Anybody else have any questions?
So there's no legal issues or that we can anticipate?
Not that I would be aware of.
It's a probationary contract.
Probationary contract, yes.
Yeah, no, I,
So this becomes a condition of employment, is that what that's called?
To get a continuous contract, yes. So we wouldn't put you on a continuous contract based on this AP unless you had that January 1st or later reference.
Mr. Mansell, do you have anything to say about it?
so,
No, I'm in agreement.
Mr.
I
Kinch,
guess I have a question.
go ahead.
David, I like them, I like it. I guess my question is, couldn't we just have one pastoral reference upon hire and then a second upon a permanent contract?
I think that's what this says.
But
Well, Bernie's talking
yeah,
about
the
three
way
potentially,
Bernie
so-
brought it up, it could be three.
But that's with a person who still is going on to a probationary contract, correct?
Yes.
Second probationary contract.
Yes.
So you're still not on continuous. So
Oh, okay, I understand, yeah, okay. These intricacies on my. Okay,
So do we want it just on the continuous contract or every probationary year?
I am not moved to change any wording here, Madam Chair. But of course, there's always could be amendments.
Okay, is any more comments or questions? Okay, all in favor? All right, 11.5, request for feedback from Teacher Board Advisory Committee.
Madam Chair, I'd like to move the recommendation under 11.5.
Any comments here? I think this is going to open us up to a whole lot of. When I read over it and I thought of my own teaching career and thought of different scenarios this could bring up, I saw it as a place for teachers or support staff. I see it, if there was the provide feedback would be great, but I see this as a slippery slope of people getting really picky. And Mr. Kinch?
Sorry, I don't.
Yeah, I'm good. I have to think more about what I'm thinking here.
Madam Chair,
my only concern is that, it's kind of my understanding that the Teacher Board Advisory Committee is a committee where the teachers bring forward concerns or difficulties that they may have experienced or their staff may be experiencing, so that it can be presented to senior admin and subsequently to the board. And this is kind of going backwards, and it almost, in some ways, takes control over that committee and requests it to do some actions.
Mr. Leahy?
It's the Teacher Board Advisory Committee, and I don't see what's wrong with the board asking staff to provide us with some feedback. How could that be a bad thing? Now, I've heard that this, it might turn into, to paraphrase, kind of pettiness and that kind of stuff. Well, once again, as I said earlier this evening, just because there might be problems, potential problems with some kind of issue or whatever, doesn't mean we shouldn't try it. So I just don't see anything wrong with trustees asking I guess we could send out a survey, but this is a formal mechanism. I agree with Mr. Kinch in the sense that historically, it's been a one-way street. But I'm saying, why can't it be a two-way street where we ask them for feedback?
Anybody else? Robert?
So this is just a one-time thing, as it reads.
Yeah, because I'm interested in getting staff feedback on those two issues. At some point, there may be another trustee who would like to get staff feedback on other issues, and I don't think we should eliminate trustees from having that opportunity to make such a request of the mechanism that's been established historically in the district to facilitate discussion on non-contract matters between trustees and teachers.
Yeah, I just don't see this as the place to do it, or that if you want to do a survey, but I don't think it should go through Teacher Board Advisory.
Where do we?
Yeah. I'm just not in favor of it, and that's personal. Okay, any other discussion? All right, David has made the motion. Those in favor? Oh, sorry, Robert?
How would we, like, when we gather this information, how would we disseminate it? Like, what would be the?
I believe Mr. Kinch would report back to the board as to what he had heard. You are the teacher board rep, right, Trustee Kinch?
Yes.
So he would report back to the board the feedback that he heard from teachers then. So it would be disseminated to answer your question, Deacon Robert, it would be disseminated in a report to the Board of Trustees that would be part of a regular agenda.
And how would they gather that information? Like, because Teacher Board Advisory are only going to have X number of teachers there. How are we going to get all teachers?
Trustee Kinch could help me here, but not help me, but clarify. My experience with Teacher Board Advisory is that at staff meetings, issues would come up. It would be an item on the agenda. Is there anything anybody has that they would like to have referred to Teacher Board Advisory and we'll discuss it in the staff meeting, and then we'll ask our reps to report about it when the teacher board advisory meets. So what I'm seeing here is that this request would go out to the schools and the teacher board advisory people, and it would be on the agenda of the staff meeting. Input would be generated, and then the reps would take that to a teacher board advisory meeting and report it to Mr. Kinch. Because if what you're saying is the truth, Madam Chair, then the teacher board advisory is really an ineffective mechanism if all we're hearing from is just the people on that committee.
Oh, you're right, and that's how it works.
Yeah.
Because I was the teacher board advisory as a teacher and as a trustee.
Right.
Okay,
Madam Chair?
yep,
Again, I look at it, and in principle, I don't have a problem with this motion. It's just the perception that could be received by that committee that they're being directed by the board when, as Trustee Leahy has mentioned, that in the past, it's always been the teachers bringing the concerns forward. And in some ways, I don't disregard what he said when he said, well, why can't it go back the other way as well? I just don't want to kind of make a public relations difficulty with teachers, where they're going, well, now they're telling us how to run our committee. And I think we have to be careful about that.
go ahead.
Maybe it's in my world, maybe it's the term inclusion that might be causing some angst. Can we align it with our strategic priorities and just call it teaching and learning? Thoughts to that? And should we be identifying a certain group?
I'm interested in hearing feedback from staff about inclusion, their access to resources and the amount of support you are being provided, what is working well, what is not working well. That's what, as a trustee, I would like to hear from staff.
Okay.
And I think the teacher board advisory is a good way to do it.
Howard?
This is again voluntary on behalf of the teachers. There's no directive saying they have to submit to the questionnaire or to the 2 questions, right?
Yeah. Okay, any other discussion or points? All right, let's vote on it then. All in favor? Opposed? It's defeated. Okay, amending strategic priority 4 of the 4-year plan. Mr. Leahy.
The recommendation is there, Madam Chair. I move the recommendation.
Okay, and that's to change, what does it say exactly there? I can't see that far. SCSL to,
It doesn't mention anything about the SCSL. So I'll read it.
Yeah.
That the strategic priority 4 of the Metis-Nana Catholic Board of Education's 4-year plan be changed to the following: the replacement and consolidation of St. Francis Xavier School as outlined in the division capital plan.
okay, can you explain that a little bit more to me? I'm not really sure what you mean here. Like, I know what this says, but is it one of those 4 that you want
So
to change?
Right here, Madam
Right.
Chair. It says Sisters of Charity of St. Louis Center.
Right,
Okay.
and you want that
And-
changed to this?
And what I'm saying is that for the efficient operation of the district, all our important planning documents should align. And so this is no longer strategic priority number 4. Strategic priority number 4 should be in alignment with what the capital plan is. And the capital plan isn't calling for that anymore. It's calling for the consolidation of those schools that is in the capital plan. That is all I'm asking.
Okay. Okay, I just didn't understand that. Anybody else? Mr. Kinch?
Thank you, Chair. Again, I have concern with our change in capital plan. More so than just the changing of this and making this motion. It has to do with the amalgamation of several schools, though as a campus, and I'll use that in quote, they may just be connected by a adjoining hallway or wing with a multi-use facility and perhaps a theater in the middle. And I look at it and I still am concerned about the impact on the division as a whole, where we're moving so many students to one area of the city and leave the hill vacant, where we'll have no presence as a district any longer. And quite frankly, while I've said previously that I'm in support of the theater for McCoy, I just have great reservations on the impact that the desire to get this theater is having division-wide. I think I'll leave it at that.
Anybody else? Okay, then let's vote on this. The strategic priority 4 of the Medicine Hat Catholic Board 4-year plan be changed to the replacement and consolidation of St. Francis Xavier School as outlined in the division capital plan. All in favor? Opposed? Okay, passed. Financial analysis of budget surpluses. Mr. Leahy.
Madam Chair, I'd like to move the following recommendation of the trustees of the Medicine Hat Catholic Board of Education. Request that the board's audit committee work with the financial services department to analyze the last 3 surplus budgets to determine if there are any trends. The audit committee is asked to present a report to the board of trustees by January 15th, 2023. If I may speak to the motion, please.
Go ahead, please.
Recently, I had a memory come back to me. I was a 2nd-year principal. A former secretary treasurer was talking about there being a budget deficit. And a new administrator in division asked for details. And I said to myself, well, have we ever, in my experience as a trustee, ever asked Mr. McPherson to share with us in detail where these surpluses have come from? Because, Trustee Kinch has from time to time mentioned that historically in the division, we've either had a balanced budget or a deficit budget, and then at the end of the year, there's been surpluses. And so what I'm asking that if there is trends, that the audit committee work with the financial services to identify those trends, and then that may be able to help us in our budget development. From my own experience, when sometimes there were a few years we had budget surpluses, and Mr. McPherson was able to share with us that part of the problem was calculating a reliable, I don't know if that's the word, it had to do with paraprofessional salaries and benefits. It was very hard to come down with a number that proved to be accurate. That's not a criticism of the Secretary Treasurer. There were a number of factors involved. But that was one of the ways that at that time we were able to say to the board, why is there a surplus? Well, this is one of the reasons why there is a surplus. So I think it's well worth the exercise for the audit committee with financial services to look at the past 3 surplus budgets and see if there are any trends. If there aren't, that's fine. If there are, that will help us deal with any kind of situation where we are continually forecasting deficits, but regularly come back with surpluses. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Anybody else? Okay, let's vote on this. All in favor? Passed. Okay, committee reports. ATA Negotiations Committee, Mr. Mustel.
Thanks, Madam Chair. I haven't prepared a written report, as the information that would have been in it, if I had written it on Thursday, would already be long out of date. As you probably already know, the ATA voted to accept the recommendation of the mediator. I have been told by a narrow margin. The voting concluded on Wednesday rather, with the results being released on Thursday. On Friday last week, the TIBA board met. They have also agreed to ratify that contract. The thing we have to remember about that is that effective on Friday, there is a 0.05% increase for our ATA staff. I did some quick math. Greg, can you help me out here? I'm really far off base. But I think by my rough calculations, the 0.05%, and I made a guess that some average teacher costs would translate into a little more than $400 a year. Have you any information that could say whether I'm close or way off base for that?
That would be about right for the year. The incremental cost would only be for 2.5 months.
Yes, yeah. I understand that calculating this at the beginning or in the middle of the month, rather, effective on the 10th of June, is a little arduous, and it may be beyond our capacity to have that incremental change show up on the June paycheck. I think that's the goal that the Greg's department is working toward, but it may not be possible being the amount of work that's involved in making that change. With regard to how that affects us going forward, Greg, I'll have to rely on you here for some expertise. There was something mentioned that there is something we need to do within 60 days. And I'm not exactly clear as to what that was as a division negotiating with our staff. Can you fill me in there?
I believe it's within 60 days, we have to serve, or the ATA has to serve notice to commence our bargaining for the local.
That's all it is? Okay. So within 60 days, we have to advise of our intent to negotiate. Typically, that's something that the ATA provides for us.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. That concludes my report, Madam Chair.
Okay. All right. QP, Mr. Risling, or Deacon Risling, sorry.
Nothing to report.
Teacher Board Advisory, Mr. Kinch.
No reporting.
Support Staff Board Advisory, Deacon Robert.
Nothing. We did have a meeting. I forgot about it. We had a meeting.
Sure, we had a meeting last week, and really the only thing on the agenda was informing the support staff advisory committee that we were looking to form a committee, one that they could use to negotiate. And so they were in favor of that, and the chairperson, Mrs. McDonald, put out a call to staff to get on that committee, and we'll wait until September, and we should have some names by then, and we can start, that committee can start their work at that time.
Okay. Any questions? QP, Mr. Leahy.
The last meeting was canceled because there was nothing to discuss.
That's not a bad thing.
No.
Student Board Advisory, we didn't have a meeting. Audit Committee. Glasgow, Kinch, and Leahy, we didn't have any meetings. Right? Division Consolidation Planning Committee. Dwayne.
Mr. McPherson, we are working on a draft, or he's working on a draft with respect to your request for funds for the value scoping for the project. And once that has been read through and make sure that we're asking for everything that I think we need, we'll be forwarding that to Alberta Infrastructure.
Perfect. Any questions? ASBA Zone 6, Mr. Mestel.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Our last meeting was on the 17th of May at Horizon in Tabor. That was the date of the Edwin Parr event also. It was reported that the Bill 15, that is has been described as the teacher discipline legislation, has passed third reading. There was also a report that the ASBA has been very effective in their lobbying with regard to the curriculum and the success they've had in scaling back the rollout of particularly of the social studies program. There's been $59 million invested in the implementation. Vivian also made a presentation regarding the budget, and the recommendation of the committee was that there be a 3% increase in the membership fees. Now, if you weren't in Red Deer, you missed a great debate on parliamentary procedure and the great time we had in discussing the budget for about 2 hours.
2.5 hours to pass a motion.
The end result, after many amendments were made to motions, is that 3% was decreased to 0%. So there will be no fee increases for members this year. We were advised that the association has approximately $6.25 million in reserve. These reserves are held in 3 different accounts. It is estimated that the annual budget for the association is about $4.35 million. So if we had collected no fees at all for a year, we would still have enough money to operate and still have enough money left over to wind down if it came to be that the association were to disband. It's estimated that we have about $1.25 million in standing costs should the ASBA for some reason or other decide to cease to exist. So there was a lot of discussion about why do we need this amount of money, and ultimately it was decided that we didn't, and there would be a 0% increase. The space that the association is renting is not full. We have vacant space there, and the association is trying to rent or to find a tenant for that and generate some money on the space that we're paying for. It was at that meeting where Ron Taylor in his report made the announcement of the Safe Air Top-Up Fund. And when I texted Dwayne, he said he already had the email and that the amount of money was coming that Greg talked about earlier. So are there any questions? I would be happy to answer. Following the meeting, of course, we went to the Edwin Parr dinner, and again, a great number of of incredible young teachers that attended.
Okay, ACSTA, my report is in there. They had an online general meeting, and so there's some notes on that. Medicine Hat Catholic Schools Education Foundation, Mr. Kinch.
Madam Chair, Foundation had a golf tournament on Friday. Apparently there were 71 golfers involved. This coming next week, there's going to be an evaluation meeting. That seems to have gone off quite well.
Good. Okay, Parent Association, I have a report attached there as well. That one just keeps on moving. I love it. TIBA, Mr. Masteller, did you do that one already?
I have nothing further to report, Madam Chair.
All right, closing prayer. Mr. Leahy.
Sorry, Madam Chair, I'm working on my phone here. I'm being redirected. You could join with me, please, in the name of Father, Son, Holy Spirit, amen. Carrying out your ministry, Lord,
Thank you for being with us during this meeting and for having guided our thoughts, words, and actions. Stay with us now as we leave this meeting and return to our respective lives. Help us to keep you as you are now in our thoughts, words, and actions. We ask this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Father, Son, Holy Spirit.
Okay, we are adjourned. And now we have to go back to the committee of the whole. After a 3-minute potty break.